Title 17 U.S. Code, Sections 107 to 108 of the Copyright Law. All media in this video is used for the purpose of review and commentary under terms of fair use. All footage, music and images used belong to their respective companies. Also YouTube, please, for the love of gun X sword the perfect anime, fix your broken system when you are able, because Quint will blame me.
Little Witch Academia is an attempted recreation at the magical girl genre in a more modern setting. I don't think it's going to come off as any surprise that magical girl series are sort of falling out of style. So many try to be innovative or unique, but they end up just getting brushed off to the general public because apparently there's just some things you can't top because of how iconic they are. While I myself am not of this mindset, I can definitely see why we're getting less and less entries to this genre. Now, traditionally speaking, Little Witch Academia isn't 100% just a magical girl series. I mean, there's no transformation sequences, reuse of iconic attacks, monster of the week type threats, so it does have its things that it doesn't do that other traditional magical animes do, but it is still at its core a magical girl series. With me having covered magical girl animes in the past, I thought, why not? After all, I need more reasons to not review, delay the Clear Card Arc video, but let's sweep that totally genuine excuse under the rug for the time being. I know, I'm not the target audience for this kind of show. I know. But admittedly, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. Or honestly, maybe it isn't. I mean, guilty pleasure would imply that it's badly written, but I've seen magical girl series that I genuinely like. Keep in mind, in my Cardcaptor Sakura video, I said when watching the series, I picked it up to laugh and make fun of it, yet I ended up really enjoying it. And Sailor Moon I grew up on with the sibling anime tradition of 2005 to 2015. And when I went back to it, it does still hold up. Dark Kingdom and a few other things aside. So, with that, let's take a dive into Little Witch Academia.
Never forget. Believe in yourself. That is your magic.
The primary setting for the series is Luna Nova Academy, a school for up-and-coming witches that is also suffering from a sort of magical energy crisis. Okay, well, at least it's not a generic Japanese town, although it's still a school setting, could be a little more original. A particularly well-known stage performer, the witch, Shining Chariot, made a name for herself doing magical shows before seemingly disappearing from the stage for good. Our main character, Akko, wants to learn to be a witch so she can do cool things like her idol, Shining Chariot. However, she quickly learns that magic and traditions of the witches are far from what she expected, and now basically has to deal with a rugged school life where she doesn't fit in and eventually works towards her dream. I know that sounds more like a plot summary than a world summary, although I need to give a bit of context before going into more of the details. This is probably one of the simplest worlds we've covered in the retrospective, and honestly, probably one of the weakest ones too. I'm not gonna be petty and say because it's simple it's bad, because one, that's not true. I've seen many good simple worlds, and two, the scope and world building here is just dry as hell. That's not to say they didn't have ideas or some larger things in mind, such as the lore regarding the 9 great witches, the Grand Triskelion, the 7 sacred words, and of course Shining Chariot herself, which naturally includes over to the plot MacGuffin, the Shining Rod. However, these things are pretty skimmed over, and more often than not, are plot devices made to push the story in the way it wants to go, but not in a natural or really clever way. I mean, take the entire magical energy crisis. It is deceptively simple. It's not Daedalus from Fairy Tale. Literally, the magical energy crisis feels like a complete second afterthought and an attempt to make fake drama, since they practice magic on school grounds like it's nothing, whereas in the real world, the Sorcerer's Stone, which supplies the witches with magic, doesn't reach that far. But because so much of the plot is focused on other things, this just goes into the background until they want to make it a big deal at the end of the series. See, it's just not very natural. I could go on, but honestly, I don't really think that would do me any good here, since what you see here is what you get. I mean, yeah, it's inoffensive, it's not like I expected anything big anyways, but I really don't feel like Luna Nova Academy has a unique identity I could call back to. It's really bland and forgettable, and that's just not a good sign for an anime world. It just doesn't have the looks. And speaking of looks, I want to bring up the animation. Look, I am no animation expert. It's one of the reasons why I took the animation and visual audio sections out of my videos and sort of just grouped them into world sections in videos going forward. But I do have to bring it up here because I might piss a few people off for saying it. I don't like the visuals here. I'm sorry, Trigger Studios, but anime just isn't the right place for this kind of thing. I'm not saying you can't be cartoony or colorful with your art style, but this is just too much. The character designs are basic as hell, and I don't just mean because they have the same Academy outfits. Facial expressions are over the top and expressive, which sounds promising, but it ends up feeling null because they do this sort of thing constantly, so you just never get a breath of fresh air and it never feels normal. Movement is also kind of blah too, but that might just be an aesthetical style thing. I get what the animation is trying to do. It wants to be cute and over the top. However, it's this way every single second of the runtime, and it just becomes an acid trip. Then, when the series wants to be more serious and take a dark tone, this sort of art style does not blend well at all. You can make the rooms as black or blue as you want. It doesn't change the fact that this just clashes with the tone. The world here is really lame. Is there anything I can say I liked? The lore is dry, the colors and art style are overbearing, the character designs are downright ugly sometimes, and the theming is too zany for its own good. What about the music? Aren't I the guy that says it's rare to find an anime with an outright bad soundtrack? Well, this OST is pretty weak. It's either generic and overdone or just plain forgettable. Like, you couldn't even get that right? Come on, guys. And I really wish it weren't so. Like, I know they had the ideas, but I can't bring myself to like this world. There's just nothing here. I mean, what does this world do that I don't see better in other animes with a similar sort of aesthetic? Honestly, like, this is a pretty negative first impression. And to think we've only covered the world.
Hey, Akko. Looks like you still can't ride a broom.
You might want to try these on for size. Orehan de Yaaaay.
Stop laughing!
Alright, we've established the world is unremarkable, and a hollow attempt to recreate the pun fully intended here, magic of the genre. It's basic, but not in any clever or good way. Oh well, simple isn't a bad thing, and it's not like I was praising Tomoeda for reusing Penguin Park 7 times either. Just give me good characters that I enjoy watching and a story that grips me. I don't think that's too unreasonable of a thing to ask. That's why I enjoyed Cardcaptor Sakura, that's why I enjoy Sailor Moon. So, how does the cast hold up here? This is one of the most trash-filled casts I've ever seen in anime. The fact I'm reminded of High Guardian Spice and its blatant attempt to push a female cast for political attention and write overdone character archetypes like it's some new grand thing is bullshit. Everyone is either unlikable or so boring I can't even bother to care about them. Oh, it's bad! If you think I'm being overdramatic just to fish for views or for the sake of it, think again. I'm being 100% genuine when I say that Little Witch Academia has a complete lack of good characters. Nobody, literally nobody in the entire goddamn roster strikes above average, and that is a sin. This is almost entirely encapsulated by the series' main protagonist, Autumn. She's so obnoxious in one note that you get pretty quickly sick of her when you realize you're spending 25 episodes and a full fucking movie with her clogging up the damn screen. Now look, I get they want to write an underdog character. It's not like this is the first anime that has an underdog character as its protagonist. Fine. Akko isn't good at magic and quickly finds out the way her idol, Shining Chariot, did magic is far different from basically every other witch. But despite that, Akko goes through with following in her footsteps to the dismay and annoyance of her peers. This creates two problems. One, Akko's growth is so slow that she literally pulls off the basic flight spell at the end of the series. And two, because she's fangirling over Chariot so much, her personal character arc just boils down to, I want to be like Chariot. Chariot does this. Chariot does that. Chariot, Chariot, Chariot. And this gets so tiresome after only a couple episodes of dealing with this. And I get it. They want to make her more open and rambunctious than the other witches. I can semi-relate to that. Especially when so many of the other witches are Karens as is. But honestly, even with that in mind, I'm not gonna act like Akko's behavior is any better. She's nosy when she shouldn't be, ropes others into business they're not interested in, and she's such a klutz that you just don't care. They wanted to write Naruto without actually taking time to recognize what made Naruto's underdog story so compelling. Akko does not get recognized until way later on, and not only does that make her already slow progression feel even more hopelessly slow, but it also hurts my impression of the other characters, who had little dynamic or attachment to Akko as is. Even her two other friends, in quotation marks, who make up the three main cast members, are not better. In fact, they're probably worse. Lotte is just really bland. She's a meek witch with a bit of a nerdy motif going on. She's really into this series of novels and her parents run a magic cafe. She does sort of look out for Akko out of concern, but if I'm being 100% honest, she feels really uninvolved and is just kind of there. That's anything but a compliment for one of your main characters. No, there is literally zero reason to ship these two characters, so do not try and argue that point with me either, and pretend like that suddenly gives Lotte layers. How down bad are you for representation that you pretend characters are in a relationship the anime gives you practically zero confirming indicators towards? And then we get Susie, the mischievous and awkward outcast who really likes poison and gross things. She's just as unlikable as her first scene would lead you to believe. She's even more uninvolved with the plot, and her quotation marks friendship with Akko is so non-existent, making the moment where Akko and several other witches team up come out of goddamn nowhere. I wanted to defend Susie, thinking maybe she got a bad rap, but after my rewatch of the series, no, Susie is insufferable. On top of having an acid trip of a dream episode that further wastes time and brain cells I already lost. And to think we're not even done yet. You thought this was a case of me merely wanting more of the sides and the mains? I meant when I said that there is a complete lack of good characters. And yes, it extends over to the side cast as well. Jasminka is just a fatso who really likes snacking and food, and I'm sure there are thousands of people who really like this generic overused character archetype in a series that already has generic overused character archetypes in anime, where people frequently complain about character depth and purpose, and then you realize Jasminka never got a focus episode, meaning that big team at the end is completely worthless, and hardly any glutton characters top popularity polls, and Constance is a grumpy-looking mechanic who combines magic with tech. I mean, she doesn't exactly do anything wrong, but she's so uninvolved, just like everyone else, the most we get out of her is an episode of Akko helping her make a knockoff Gundam mech. While that might seem like a humorous parody of Gurren Lagann, I'd rather just watch an actual mecha anime than this cheap imitation. Amanda is fine, I guess? Like, she's a hot-headed rebel who likes doing acrobatics on her broom. She even shares a bit of a common understanding with Akko, not really fitting in, and having a mutual rival. Her screen time is okay, but again, she doesn't really even do that much, making her nothing more than average, if that. Professor Ursula, I mean, totally not Shining Chariot, no, I'm not even going to bother building up some rant or joke about this. This has got to be one of the stupidest identity reveals I've ever seen, not only for how obvious it is, but also for how pointless it ended up being anyways. And here I thought Heathcliff/Kaiba's identity gig was the most obvious shit I've ever seen. Yes, Ursula/Chariot actually looks out for Akko, unlike the other Karen teachers, but who cares? Andrew isn't terrible. Like Amanda, there's some intrigue, but he's used as nothing more than a contact for the real world and a implied romantic interest for Akko. This guy puts even Tuxedo Mask to shame in the useless department. Like, sure, he actually goes out of his way for Akko a few times, but he puts on that "I'm the son of a big politician" act that really clashes with those moments where he tries to be genuinely nice. On top of this being a magical girl series, which rarely care to write good male characters anyways. Finally, there's Croy. Arguably the weakest villain I've ever seen in a magical girl series, period. I mean, how could you be any more lame than Pharaoh 90, who got off-screened in the best arc of Sailor Moon? Yeah, I mean, at least Pharaoh 90 was intimidating. Croy? Nope, she's just dumb. She pulls the whole, "Science is the real way to restore the magical energy out of the crisis state. I'll use emotion-altering technology to convert the negative feelings of anger, fear, and hatred of humans into power. I also have this whole jealousy arc with Shining Chariot because she got the Shining Rod and I didn't." Nope, she's not even the final boss. That honor is given to her Code Cube thing that possesses a goddamn missile, and then that thing becomes the last battle. Oh yeah, and it's no secret she's a villain, but really, what were you expecting? And that's it. All of the cast. There's most definitely not a character I'm deliberately ignoring because I hate that much. You can't make me. You can't make me! Let me just say, I've seen countless hateable anime characters. Some for clever and well-written reasons, others for not so good reasons. Sometimes it's intentional, other times it's a reactive result. Allow me to put this forth. What makes me truly hate a character? Horrendous personality, terrible actions, fake emotions, wasted potential, being annoying, not going away, or even just my own personal taste. Well, the hunt is over. My personal, number one, most hated fictional character of all time somehow manages to combine every single one of these aspects. Diana Cavendish. How I want to destroy everything you represent. You're everything I not only hate in a character, but you're everything I hate in a person. Born into a prodigious family, looking down on others because you think you have some kind of reputation to uphold. You actively antagonize others and basically get away with it. The entire staff of Karens play favorites with you and give you special privileges. Apparently, some even ship this utter trash with Akko when they never had anything up in common until the end of the series. And then you have the nerve to try and redeem this character who did not deserve it. I want to see you burned personally at the stake. Oh yeah, I'm going there. You can tell me I'm being too harsh all you want in the comments, but I don't give a flying broomstick about it. If you really wanted to write a rivalry like Naruto and Sasuke, well, your mission failed because you can't even write good standalone characters to save your life, let alone a compelling rivalry. I hate Diana. She's the kind of person who acts and does things people hate, but gets a free pass just because her mother died. No, you are not pulling that now. You know who else had a terrible personality and tried to justify it under the character death of someone we never even met? Asuka Langley fucking Soryu did. And you do not just get to be forgiven out of cheap sympathy this late into the runtime. And your mother wasn't even a properly established character for us to care about. Nobody cares about Makoto's death in Fire Emblem Fates because you barely got to know Makoto. So why care here? Ugh. You know why I hate the whole "my wife is dead, now I want to take revenge" trope? Well, that sort of design philosophy is equally worse applied here. If you thought Asuka was my most hated character of all time, you thought wrong. Asuka is only number 3. Diana takes the golden shit medal, and you'd have to actually try in order to make a character worse. Huh? You're wondering who's number 2? Well, that's going to be saved for another video. See what I mean? No one here is good. Literally, no one. Not a single bloody character. With an uninteresting world and terrible characters, you can bet your boots this is holding back the one thing that anime is defined by: story. And really, with all this, were you expecting anything less?
You can't give up now! You can still save this house, Diana!
No, it's too late now. I'd never make it in time.
Do I even need to give a synopsis? Ugh, fine, whatever. Well, let's start with the prologue, which has us in the POV of young Akko and Diana in the background, watching one of Chariot's magic shows as a kid. Akko, as you can no doubt see, is in awe, and with that, straight cutaway from childhood to not-so-sweet 16, since, let's be real here, when is junior high/high school ever sweet? Maybe I'm just biased because of my personal life during that school year, but whatever. Speaking of school, God, even my segues are lame. Akko wants to go to the same academy Shining Chariot does, so she asks around town, and this is quickly used to demonstrate how much of an awkward dork Akko is. And I'm already having a negative impression of this character 4 minutes in. Bump into unlikable character number 2, Susie, who is very clearly disinterested in Akko's ramblings, and it takes a rope snake for Akko to remotely get the message. See? Both unlikable. Yeah, Susie could have just said no or something, but freaking hell, snakes? I hate them as much as Indiana Jones. But Akko's not getting sympathy points from me, since she was practically hanging on Susie, so no, you don't get a free pass. So, we make it to the broom stop, where we meet 3 Karens, who serve as the obligatory, "Oh, you don't know magic?" I should have known that was gonna come up, talking about a magical girl series and all. This better not become a recurring joke. Anyways, then comes Lotte, who, while I wouldn't call downright unlikable, is still massively uninteresting. But she's willing to give Akko a lift to the academy. However, due to pickled plums, of all things, Akko, Susie, and Lotte are all thrust into the forbidden Arcturus forest. Oh boy. Then comes the immediate danger in the form of killer tentacle plants and a giant cockatrice. So Susie gets the bright idea to cage her fellow witches to distract the bird to get a feather because apparently this creep has a hard-on for rare poison. Lotte and Akko flail like panicked idiots because, okay, realistically I would too, but it seems like they won't be making the orientation ceremony on time. That's when, for some reason, Akko finds the Shining Rod, Chariot's signature scepter, out in the middle of this place and draws it. But the cockatrice is hot on their trail, so they try and fly away, but it seems like it's onto them. But thanks to the appearance of totally not Shining Chariot, I mean Professor Ursula, she tells Akko the magic words, which allow her to use the Shining Rod's bow form, Shiny Arc, and get them out of the tight spot and into the ceremony hall. Akko was allowed in under special circumstance and assigned her 2 roommates, Susie and Lotte. That was all in episode 1. This is gonna be a long watch. First off, what in the hell? You just dumped so much chaos in my face within the first 24 minutes of your own prologue, and already I, the already chaotic guy, am feeling overwhelmed. Characters are way too bouncy and unlikable, a setting that I'm not even interested in, and your story is regarding a stage performer and a rabid fangirl.
What?
You're going a mile a minute, but then you hit the immediate brakes on that, since, I'm not kidding here, we go from zany fantasy acid trip to dull, boring, slice of life school antics. And it goes on way longer than you'd think. Besides maybe introduce a character and their basic as hell personality, there is next to no progression in these early episodes. And I swear to God, Diana Anytime you're on screen, it just makes me want to let out a large sigh, grab the remote, and hit the... What do you mean you want me to do an episode-by-episode analysis? You really want me to, don't you? Following the rush of episode 1, episode 2 sees Akko and Diana bickering and fighting over this tree and butterflies. Next. In episode 3, Akko has the bright idea to sign up Susie and Lotte without their consent into a broom race. Next. Episode 4 is just 24 minutes of Lotte really likes the Nightfall novels. Next. Episode 5 is a tutorial on how to deal with your local loan shark dragon. Next. Well, episode 6 is dedicated to the introduction of Andrew, Donkey Edition. Episode 7 tells the motivating story about how fish can help you out of flunking.
Next.
Whereas episode 8, Susie's acid trip Dreamland, is more of an excuse to make unfunny references. And oh yeah, remember the headmistress? Episode 9 wants you to care about her dead pirate relative who literally just got introduced. Let's also not forget the incredibly cliche Love Cupid episode 10, dedicated to a bee making the entire party hall go goo-goo. I meant, when I said it earlier, literally nothing vaguely interesting happens until episode 11, where Akko enters the Blue Moon Abyss and the rest of her journeys are foreshadowing. And that's after 10 episodes of watching! A little under half of your runtime was dedicated to mindless filler! And no, for the record, this does not make episode 11 good. You mean to tell me I waited 11 episodes for a single kind of neat scene? Get that shit out of here.
Next.
The next 2 episodes, 12 and 13, are a two-parter dedicated to a festival. And instead of Ferris wheels, carnival games, fireworks, utakas, food, we get one of the worst looking monsters I've ever seen, and Akko revives another one of the plot MacGuffin Sticks word ability things, but who cares?
Remember, you're next.
Episode 14 introduces Totally Not a Villain. I'm sorry, Matt, I'm stealing one of your jokes here. But look how subtle Croy is. So subtle. Subtle!
Subtle!
15 could have been a decent episode. Akko unknowingly is taken into Croy's lab, and thus Ursula finally directly takes her appearance as Shining Chariot to save her. I'm sure this was meant to be a hype scene as she climbs the stairs fighting through minions, but you could already tell Ursula was Chariot, so why care? And no, Akko doesn't know Ursula's Chariot because she happens to conveniently wake up after the fact. And no, Croy does not get stopped when Chariot basically had all the evidence with her being attacked. Next. 16 is just terrible. Back to more boring slice-of-life filler stories with Lotte and some writers' moss fetish. This one just sucks, and the sooner we move on from it, the better. 17, like episode 15, could have been okay. Amanda and Andrew get some focus here, and while they don't exactly have that big of an impact, and all it really does is show Andrew goes to some school and there's this holy grail thing. Croy uses her science tech cube things to possess an armor which possesses a typical douchebaggy schoolboy to duel Amanda. And while I'm a big sucker for action, not even a fight scene can save this bland episode.
Next.
18 stars, the totally forgettable I bet you didn't care side, Constance. Akko pesters her until eventually reluctantly allowing her to help build this pirate ship Gundam mecha knockoff, which sounds like a humorous parody, but again, you're better off watching an actual mecha series, so the cheap laugh is hardly compensation here.
You pissed off the wrong guy!
And flip me over and shake me upside down by the ankles. 19 and 20 are the Diana family drama and redemption focus episodes where you try way too fucking hard to make me care about a character I personally want to tear the limbs from. On top of Akko suddenly acting like she cares when for the rest of the series she hated Diana's guts. Akko would have been happy to see Diana ditch school early series, so nobody is convincing me of this sudden, dumb as hell behavior change. Oh yeah, and the obvious as hell evil snake aunt bitch, who's just as bitchy as the bitch witch herself Diana, but you already knew that. Next. Episode 21, Chariot and Croyd, We Knew Each Other in the Past drama. Next. 22, Akko and Chariot, Secret Identity, You Lied to Me drama.
Look at you. You who were once so proud. Go now and never return.
Episode 23, Diana and Akko, suddenly are friends who care about each other in order to help her out of depression. Episode 24, oh my god, we're almost there. Well, Croyd's master plan goes about as successful as you'd expect of a magical girl anime villain, followed by a case of the, let's not make our not-so-subtle villain the final boss. No, it's apparently a way better idea to have her magic technology negative emotion cube monster things go crazy and out of control and possess a goddamn missile of all things, becoming the ultimate evil, the Nor missile. And finally, 25, the final battle. More like Final Chase, where all these characters who had little interest in each other suddenly decide to unite as the new Great Witches of Lore the series barely bothered to scrape the surface of, and sure enough, Akko and Doesn't Deserve It Diana blow up the generic monster of the week as the final boss, and then, and only then, at the very end, Akko can finally use the basic flight spell. Yeah, it's a bad story. A bad story with bad characters and a bad world, with bad animation, bad music, and I had a bad time. It's pitiful. Really, it is. I love magical girl animes. I love anime in general. But it is so depressing to see a series have something this bad come out of a genuine effort. Why did it have to be this way? This series, like every other thing I review, I watch at least 3 times out of my own personal code. While you think that kind of thing would be a bigger issue in the case of longer animes that span hundreds of episodes, you would think, but unironically, I dreaded the time I had here. On the first watch, it wasn't pleasant by any stretch of the imagination. But whatever, it was short, only 25 episodes. I could maybe get a cheap laugh out of it. However, after months, maybe a year, my rational mind goes, you know what? Maybe I was too hard on it, or maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset. Let's watch it again and give it, another look over, even though I know all the twists and turns coming up. And then I come out feeling even worse than the first watch. So then, later on, I decide to do a review. I need to make a script on it. So I watch it again for that, and a few episodes in, I know for a fact I'm not enjoying my time, and there's practically nothing the anime can do to change in order to make it better. And out of obligation, to my own personal reviewer's code, I've committed to watching the full thing I don't like for a third time to make this review. Would my review have been less angry and critical if I reviewed it after the first watch? Probably. I wouldn't have said I liked it, but I would have said something like, maybe you could get a cheap laugh out of it. And maybe somewhere out there, there's a magical girl apologist bigger than me who could get a kick out of it. But no, we're not talking about the could have beens here. Little Witch Academia was a waste of 25 episodes and a full movie. And this isn't High Guardian Spice, where it was so bad in concept that it became the laughingstock of the animation industry. Little Witch Academia was an actual, legitimate attempt to tap into the magical girl genre, yet it couldn't have been closer to High Guardian Spice if it tried. Is Little Witch Academia worse than High Guardian Spice? No. I might be mad, but I'm not crazy. There's no big political point they were trying to push here with an all-female team or whatever like they did in High Guardian Spice. The animation, while ugly, isn't deliberately trying to be cheap and cutting corners, it's just more of a style thing. And despite what the fans might think, romance isn't a focus here in the slightest, so it gets that at least. But it does not go into the negative score point category, because I'm not that petty. That being said, Little Witch Academia still gets a 0 out of 10 score for me. Yes, even lower than Evangelion, which I hated on. But at least I can give Evangelion some leeway because there was a concept in that, and Evangelion is a much older series, so I'm willing to give it, some leeway for it being a product of its time. This, I can't give it in any way a point, even just out of pity for the time it was released or the concept it was going for. I don't see myself being thrilled at the idea of a slice of life magical girl series where instead of fighting monster of the week type threats, developing characters, getting stronger, preventing some big evil calamity, or even just having characters I like watching. Instead of that, we got an unlikable cast going through their mundane school activities and eventually uniting to handle a magical energy crisis they forgot to even properly build up and make it feel like an imposing threat. And screw you, Diana Cavendish. Go join what I now dub the Trinity of Iron. Wanna know what's funny? I don't normally like doing big over-the-top rants like this in video format. I probably look like a big angry idiot hating on a series that I'm not even the target audience of. But you know what? I don't care. I'm an avid anime watcher and magical girl apologist, and I know what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy. And you know what? In order for me to enjoy those things I enjoy, I have to see what is bad in order to see what makes the series that I do hold close to my heart so precious. So, until then, let's ship garbage where garbage belongs in Garbage Island. I'm Quinn866. See ya.